Hello everyone, my name is Jordan Mossman and I am a CIS student at Missouri State University. Today I want to talk about DFDs, which stands for Data Flow Diagram. You're probably wondering what a DFD is and what the purpose of creating a set of DFDs will do to help you in your business. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail as to what the DFD does, the different types of symbols used in DFDs, the four components that make them up, as well as the rules of DFDs, the levels of DFDs, and the practical use of them in business. So you're probably wondering what a DFD is. This stands for Data Flow Diagram. A data flow diagram maps out the flow of information for any process or system. This means that once you create a set of DFDs, you will be able to easily tell the structure of the data information system of whatever it is you set out to create a DFD for. Now, the DFD was popularized in the late 70s by Ed Yourdon and Larry Constantine. It was written about in their book, Structured Design, and it really took off around this time, the 70s, and became popular in applying to business analysis. Although they were not the only people involved in creating DFDs, there was also Tom DeMarco, Chris Gain, and Trish Sarson. Now that I've said their names, it should make a little bit more sense as to why the most popular systems of symbols from the next slide are named the way that they are. Now, there are three different types of systems of symbols, and I'm sure there are more, but these are the three main ones that people choose from, and it really comes down to preference. Right now, for my assignment, I used Yourdon and Code symbols, just the basic ones. And there are minimal differences in between Yourdon and Code and Gain and Sarson, such as the process symbols are a little different, and there are lines in between some of the symbols for Gain and Sarson. Now, onto the four components of DFDs. There are external entities, which are usually an outside item that receives or sends data. There are processes, which are any process that changes data, producing an output. There's data store, which are files or repositories that hold information for later use. And data flow, the route that data takes between the other components. There are rules to DFD. You can't just go around and do what you want to do. You have to follow these guidelines to make sure that the data that you're entering into your system matches the guidelines and creates an easygoing process that mostly anyone can understand. Now, the rules are that each process should have at least one input and one output. Each data store should have at least one data flow in and one data flow out. Data stored in a system must go through a process, and all processes in a DFD go to another process or data store, and we'll get a little bit more into these rules and how they coincided with my homework. Now, there are different levels to DFDs. There's a functional decomposition diagram, a context DFD, and a diagram 0, which I will show you a little bit more in the next slides. Now, there can be as many levels to a DFD possible. There isn't only 3. You're not limited. It just depends on what it is being made for and how complex and big your information system is and what your needs are. Now, here is the functional decomposition diagram. It decomposes the entire system scenario into functional form. Each block can be implemented using functions, and the coordination of each function complete the diagram and bring it all together. Now, as you can see on my example for my homework for the Mozart Piano Studio, each data store and process in my example are tagged alongside a data flow, which are the arrows. Now, it goes from class arrangement to lesson assignment to lesson log creation. That is the main, that is the main flow of the system that they wanted. Now over here we have volunteer registration. That is for anybody looking to sign up for classes. They have to go through a phone interview and then a Skype interview, and their registration is complete. Now for the business side of the piano studio, they do student registration, select piece and category, and then they register for lessons, and then they can email to opt in or out of the program. Now for the context DFD, this shows the system under consideration as a single high-level process and then shows the relationship that the system has with other external entities. Now you can see my external entities in my context DFD. Basically, the context DFD gives context to the whole system that you are creating. So for this MPS system, the student selects lesson, which goes through the system, and they also have an option for the lesson. The log, managed log, goes through the log, and that is what they use for their database in assigning lessons for people. And that runs back through their system. When someone volunteers for their program, they go through the registration process, which I showed you in the decomposition diagram. And then the system assigns them lessons. Now onto the diagram 0. This is the first level of system description of the system processes. So when a volunteer sends in a registration request, they go through a recruiting officer and also their business system. Now over here, like I said before, they go through an interview, a phone interview and a Skype interview, which in turn puts them into the registration database, and then they can then assign them lessons. Now on this side, through their business, it goes system to registration process and enters them into the student's database, and which they can in turn choose a lesson or be provided a lesson for. Now let's on to the practical uses of DFDs. There are many practical uses of DFDs in business. They are mostly used when someone has a huge complex project with many entities, data and processes going on. It is possibly the most effective way of making sense of all the data in one diagram or a few diagrams. And here are my citations for the information that I have talked about. In summary, DFDs can and have been widely used in business since the 70s to make data systems easier to understand. There are 3 main levels to DFDs, although you can have more. There are 4 components in DFDs, which we talked about, where the external entities, the data flows, the data stores, and the processes, as well as several rules that you can use to guide you to make a functioning and understandable DFD or set of DFDs. Thank you for your time.